Hello, and welcome to another episode of the DevLab podcast. Today, we're joined by Charlotte Trott, who is a senior program manager and with the Onyx team at GSK, and Adrian Samuel, who is a senior AI and ML platform engineer with the Onyx team also at GSK. Before we get into it, just a brief introduction to GSK as a company. So GSK is a global biopharma company driven by a purpose to unite science, technology, and talent to get ahead of disease together. By the end of the decade, GSK aims to positively impact the health of 2.5 billion people while growing as a successful company where people can thrive. So great, let's get into the episode. Thanks to everyone out there listening. I'm really excited to have you along with us again today. We're going to start by finding out a little bit more about Charlotte and Adrian, their career journey so far, just so you can get introduced and well acquainted to them before we get into the rest of the content. So Charlotte, let's start with you. Firstly, welcome to the podcast. Why don't you tell us a bit about your story and how you kind of ended up in your current role today?
Of course. Thank you for having me. So as introduced, my name is Charlotte Trott. I'm a senior program manager with the Onyx team at GSK. I started my career studying chemistry at university. I'm a scientist professionally. That was my training. I studied a degree called chemistry with medicinal chemistry at Imperial College London, and that really triggered my interest in sort of pharmaceuticals. However, I discovered through the process of doing my master's degree that I probably wasn't destined to work in the lab forever. I really, really enjoyed the science and I really enjoyed solving complicated questions, but my skill set was slightly different to that of a traditional scientist. So I was interested in how I could use technical problem solving and a scientific background in a slightly different career. When I left university, I started working as a project manager for a big oil company called ExxonMobil. This was a really interesting time. It was obviously my first job post-uni. It was also during COVID, where the oil companies went through a very interesting transition time. And I was really, really thrown in the deep end. My job was basically managing all the different Esso petrol stations across the UK. Everything from building them to how they were run, to fixing problems. And it was really much trial by fire, like lots of different problems going on, lots of different things to fix, it was very fast paced, but very interesting. I am really, really grateful for that opportunity because it really opened my eyes into what it took to be a project manager, the sort of the skills necessary. But I knew that I didn't really want to work for that sort of type of industry. And my chemistry background, my pharmaceutical background was the thing that drew me to GSK. I am really behind the company's mission of creating medicines to help people is a ethos that I really feel quite deeply about. And when the opportunity arose to join GSK, I leaped on it. I originally joined as a operations manager, which is equally a really interesting job. It's slightly less project related, but was more solving business problems almost as a consultant to lots of different teams. So I had a really good opportunity to understand how things work in GSK, which is fantastic when you work for a really big company because it's a very difficult landscape to know how everything works together. So a really interesting peek under the curtain. But I always knew that I did want to go back into project management. It was really the thing that interested me fundamentally. So when the opportunity came to join the Onyx team as a program manager, I really leaped on it. It was an opportunity to work on a problem in bringing tech solutions and products to R&D scientists who really need that foundational capability to do their work better in a way that I could work with really, really amazing, smart engineers working on really cool topics, a way that I could expand my scientific knowledge beyond the classic chemistry and more into a tech background and just work with really cool people on cool projects. So that's how I got here, really.
Fantastic. Great summary. And look, I think it's really cool that you've kind of gone full circle from an industry standpoint, but maybe not from a vocational standpoint, right? You've taken that different route, those different daily activities, the different kind of, actual role that you're doing, but you've come back to that initial passion for science. And we're going to really delve into your experiences across different industries, in our next topic. But before we do, Adrian, welcome to the podcast. It'd be great to hear a bit about you as well and kind of how you have ended up in your current role within AI and ML.
Yeah, I just want to say on Charlotte's point, Charlotte is one of those awesome, really smart, talented people. And I've really had fun working here and working with people like her. So I'm Adrian, Senior AI/ML Platform Engineer. It's a bit of a mouthful. Um, my story is very unorthodox. Studied economics. I actually want to go into policy development, change the world, save everything that's wrong. And I ended up after university in a sales role, cold calling actually. So it was for an Dutch accounting company and accounting software company. Found myself quite far away in a suit making phone calls. The role after that was making phone calls, not in a suit, at a sort of not a startup, but somewhat of a sort of mid-sized scale up. And my love of people and talking and my curiosity and my interest in solving problems led me into a role as a product specialist in the customer success team. And that's really where I got my wings. I think finding ways to make customers happy, really understanding how to, I think, remake yourself in the sense of, I don't have a background, it was in retail and e-commerce and hospitality, and sort of transitioning, I guess, my thinking process and adapting, I guess, a set of principles to solving unique problems. There was a class of problems that couldn't be solved by anything other than writing code. And so I picked up some books and some courses online and started to learn how to code. And that led me to Canada with the same company, where I was a API solutions consultant, really helping businesses on the ground build out automations and tools and software for their needs. That eventually led into a role in the product team as a platform engineer, API platform engineer. So the customer changed at that point. It wasn't so much end users, but it was internal developers. And I think in some ways that shaped my career, even now at GSK. So prior to this, I was at a telemetry company in London, and we essentially looked at ingesting data to help save the world by informing customers how they could be more green, essentially. And I think in that same vein, I'm at GSK now trying to make a difference with people. I think I just like helping people. I like to be in a role where we have a lot of hard engineering problems, but you get to really engage with people. I think sticking me in a room, in a box is not ideal. I do like to really solve problems in a collaborative fashion. And I think GSK recognizes the need for different disciplines to come together to make things happen and make things work. Fundamentally, my role is all about how can we enable people to use AI to solve problems. And I think we've recognized that, especially when it comes to developing and researching medicine, finding ways, novel insights to bridge the gap between hypothesis to solution requires uh, a lot of teams to work in such a way to get things done. And I think if we can find ways to accelerate that, that would be useful. And that's what we do in our team. We accelerate engineers, we accelerate people, we accelerate scientists, and we push them forward to finding the answer to build a better world for tomorrow. That's the long short of what I do.
Fantastic. Again, great summary. And really the passion for solving problems, doing good, helping people, having an impact is something that always really stands out whenever I speak to anyone from GSK. So yeah, fantastic to hear that has that trend has continued. And look, you both have such interesting backstories and kind of unorthodox routes into your current role. So I think we're going to get some great insights as we delve through the different topics today. So Adrian, we'll stay with you on this next question. So look, you've already detailed you've worked across lots of different industries. What skills or ways of thinking from your previous roles have been kind of surprisingly helpful in your current role with
Yeah, I think recognizing that no matter where you work, there is a product and there is a customer. And I think speaking and engaging as close as you can to the needs and understanding those, doing product market fit, essentially. Understanding that you want to build for something that people want to use rather than building for something that you imagine people might want. That saves you time, saves you money, but also it helps you maintain a level of expectation across leadership and on your stakeholders. It's really important, I think, for engineers to recognize that they're more than just code machines. I think in some ways we're force multipliers, right? If we can solve a solution without writing code, all the better. And it's about really understanding your place in the organization is really important, and getting to know the product people like Charlotte, getting to know the scientists if you can, getting to know the stakeholders and understanding how to best address the needs and the requirements of all these things in an inclusive way rather than sort of doing it in the back room. I think that's a core important skill you can take anywhere.
Yeah, for sure. That joined up collaborative approach, really working together to solve problems and to unlock that hidden knowledge, across different teams, for sure. Absolutely critical. Charlotte, what's your opinion on that? Would you agree with kind of what Adrian just said there, and anything you take from the previous industries and previous roles that you've worked in that, again, you were kind of surprised by?
Yeah, definitely. I think for me, program management and project management is like a lot of the same fundamentals no matter where you work. You're always managing timelines, managing people, making sure that you're delivering the thing you're supposed to, and managing like the risks and decisions and process that comes along with it. So I think having like a good foundation in those skills and just applying them to different areas is very helpful. But equally, Onyx being a tech group is really interesting because tech is kind of heralded for new ways of working and doing things differently, and all the buzzwords and keywords that comes with working in agile, which is another reason that I was really attracted to the job. It sort of presents a brand new way of looking at things. I think a good skill that I've hopefully developed through my career is not being afraid to fail fast. I often make a lot of some mistakes, but being able to have a go at something, figure out if it works or if it doesn't, and pivot if needed is really important. And I think that kind of links into Adrian's like product-led mindset, right? You've got a direction of what you should try and achieve. You attempt to get there, you test it out, you seek feedback, and either keep progressing on that line or change and pivot to something else.
There's a risk, I think, of rabbit holing too deep into something without realizing, like asking why. I think the world is obsessed with finding core novel ways of creation. And I think we always got to step back. That's why we have like ethics and even in GSK, we have a responsible AI team. We can create things, but we have to ask ourselves why. What are we doing? Why are we trying to push in that direction? What is the net benefit? Is there a net benefit in sort of exploring this line? And I think essential questions. I wanted to also tack on to Charlotte mentioned like kind of iterative failing fast. There's a really good book, 2 books. I think The Lean Startup and The Mom Test. And I actually like them both, but The Mom Test is really simple. And I like it's the idea that if you build something and then you ask someone, or you just have an idea and you tell someone, if I built this, would you use it? Because your mom loves you, as it were, she would never lie to you. And therefore, you sometimes don't get really realistic, practical feedback on something. And I think it's about finding the right questions to ask. And I think people like Charlotte know how to ask the questions in the right way that don't bias the people she's asking to give useless feedback. I think it's important that we communicate and have genuine, sincere responses.
I think also fostering the culture that if the answer you get is maybe not what you hoped for or slightly negative or whatever, you're empowered by that answer no matter what it is, and it's not like a slap on the wrist, oh no, we've messed up.
Yeah.
This is a disaster, rather than look, we tried something, we look at all this work that we did, it wasn't for nothing, we've learned something from this, and the thing we do next is going to be even better because we did the work and we asked those questions and we were honest and brave enough to act on the results, no matter even if they weren't what we wanted.
Yeah, for sure. We win or we learn, right? I think is a motto that anyone who works, well, to be honest, in any walk of life, but certainly within the world of product technology can certainly take to heart. Charlotte, I really want to delve into kind of the communication element that you mentioned and really focus on like the ways of working and things like that. But before we do, Adrian, just wanted to delve into some of your experience of a recent hackathon with rewriting the code. And kind of what stood out from that experience, and how does it reflect GSK's approach to innovation and supporting early talent?
Hackathon was fun. I'll start there. We partnered with rewriting the code to bring some, I guess, new talent and expose them to sort of environment of like GSK. We created some mock challenges that reflect sort of the work that we do and the challenges that we have. And I think what I like to see is students went off, they went into their own groups and they just imagined. They didn't think so much about, like, this is not possible, therefore it's possible. They were like, this has to be possible. There's probably something out there that can help me do it. And they just started to dream. And I think the presentations that they did, the technology that they used really reflected, especially the use of GenAI. It was impressive. I think Yeah, it was a miniature GSK basically in each team. I think it shows that you need, I think just trying out something, not everything that you do is going to be successful. Not everything you do is going to be polished in the way that you might want. But I think asking questions, seeing if there's healthy feedback, can know whether you're getting the right signals to continue or to stop. And I think the hackathon reflected that. The students are showing a lot of eagerness and curiosity, and the future is still tomorrow and in them. So I'm looking forward to seeing how the industry changes as people get more comfortable with their imagination.
Yeah, fantastic. And look, always great to hear that, GSK and other companies are investing in that next generation of talent. I know it's something that GSK is very passionate about and always has really put a lot of effort into making sure we are bringing through that next generation. So again, fantastic to hear the continuity there. Charlotte, anything you'd like to add on that? Any experiences you've had with, I suppose, the kind of next gen joining the business?
Yeah, I think GSK does a really good job with, or especially the Onyx group, with an internship program. So there are a series of interns that join us every summer. So I get to talk to them every now and again. But it's really cool to offer the opportunity for people to have a taste of what it's like to work in both Onyx as sort of a startup within a big company, as well as GSK as a whole, and test out what careers are like. I feel like it's probably very intimidating, people leaving universities where they've got, like a wealth of different things that they could do, loads of different industries they could join, and being able to show like an accurate representation and excite people of what it would be like to join GSK is really helpful, as well as giving those opportunities to students and people who might not be able to get it and might not be able to get that experience in other ways. So that's especially, I think, what rewriting the code was about as well, offering those opportunities to people who might not usually get them, which I think is really good, really great.
For sure. Super important. Fantastic. Really wanted to move on to chatting through ways of working. You mentioned the importance of communication, the importance of collaboration. And a lot of what you do will be really bringing different teams together and bridging those gaps. So with that focus that you have, can you share a moment where shifting your team's ways of working really kind of made a difference?
Yeah, definitely. I think when it comes to solving problems, companies are all just like a group of people trying to work together to accomplish something, right? So despite having all of the technical skills that you need to actually do the job, you also just need to assemble a group of people who can work together and will work together somewhat well to actually do the thing, which is, basically the philosophy of my job and what I try and achieve. I think I've got a couple of interesting examples. One is the Onyx team is working on a cloud migration at the moment, moving off our on-premises data centers onto the Google Cloud platform. And this is like a huge Onyx initiative that involves basically every single person in the department, and bringing together all those different teams in a way that they can work comfortably with each other, they can manage each other's workloads, they can respect each other, they can agree who makes decisions, they can agree how processes work, is sometimes challenging, right? Like, we have lots of different people who have joined from lots of different industries, each have their own perspective of how things should be done and why, and being able to bring a group together so that they work as efficiently and as nicely together as they can has been really exciting. As I say, I'm really fortunate to work with really fantastic people who genuinely do like working together and do believe what we're working on matters, so are very receptive to all of the different initiatives that I shoehorn into them to get them to work together rather than butting heads. Equally, I think GSK is quite lucky that we have quite a low ego company. There's no like people who are very difficult to work together or work with, like that collaborative nature of teams is really apparent in Onyx. I think the other example is with the Jules team, so the team that Adrian works on creating the generative AI LLM chatbot that we're working on has been really exciting. This is slightly different, as Onyx is working very heavily with the artificial intelligence and machine learning team in a way that that team helps prototype brand new features that help R&D scientists sort of do their work faster, and then passes that over to our team to industrialize and productionize and launch to the whole of R&D. I think the two groups, once again, have like a united vision of what we're trying to do, but very different philosophies in terms of risk and speed and that sort of thing. So combining the teams has been really interesting. And I think a bit of a bumpy ride, but I feel like we've grown together to actually understand each side of the coin and work together a lot better to produce something that works. What's your perspective, Adrian, on the Jules team? And
Yeah, it's weird because I've been in kind of both departments because I was once in AIML when I first joined, and then I moved to Onyx. I think, yeah, it's about being like, there's a desire to be hard and fast, get things out, try things and, break it. But then there's also, we want to be compliant because we're in a regulated industry. We want to make sure we do things properly. And striking a careful balance can be very tricky. It's a bit like, imagine you have an army, right? Everyone's skilled at war, but an army is not just built on skilled soldiers. You need the logistics. You need the food. You need to have the way that you assemble yourself, I think, dictates whether you'll be successful. And I think we've tried quite a few different models to see what fits best. I think we're still growing in that area. I don't think it's a one and done thing ever. I think we will continue to grow as the team develops, as the product needs change. I think it's a refinement process that I think a lot of companies are working through, essentially, especially with the unique challenges that GenAI is bringing. And I think any cross-departmental exercise is always tricky by nature of just organizations. But yeah, it's a lot of fun and challenge, but we're pushing.
yeah, and I think the team is really lucky that everyone is driven by the same motive to produce a really good product and point in the same direction and vision. As I say, for the other teams, very forgiving in trying lots of different ways of working, seeing if something works, being vocal when it doesn't, so we can adjust how it works to make an easier life for everyone and do what we're trying to do faster and better. So yeah, it's a very exciting experiment. I think all round, both in what we're producing, how we work. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's a really important point that it is in constant evolution, right? There are guiding principles that I think do kind of span and stand the test of time, but there's new capabilities every week, every month, particularly when we think about how we leverage new tools within the world of AI, right? And what was impossible or hard to do or too expensive to do 6 months ago, all of a sudden isn't, right? And what is now might not be in a further 6 months. So yeah, it's that constant iteration.
And just on that as well, Phil, I think that's one unique thing that I would say is novel in the tech industry now. I think LLMs have definitely changed the capabilities of engineers. And whereas it would be a safe bet to maybe build something yourself and spend X amount of time on it, you might build it 6 months and then it's standard now in the industry and you just wasted your time. So I think getting good at predicting the market, predicting the industry, and keeping ahead of research, understanding where you think things will go, I think is its own set of unique challenges that we haven't had to do before.
Yeah, for sure. Come on then, since you've both given me such a great segue, let's talk about GenAI. Let's talk about the hot topic. You can't get through a podcast in 2025 without focusing in on it. So you're both involved in it in different ways. So Adrian, maybe let's come to you first. What excites you most about the potential of GenAI and how do you see it driving change in healthcare?
Yeah, I mean, the world I lived in just maybe a couple of years ago was you had to know. It's almost as if I'm a bouncer at the door and I'm told if you're not dressed in a suit and tie, you can't come in. And the reason is because the event is like this. And if you're not dressed correctly, you're not a good fit. And so you turn your way. I think LLMs have changed things where the bouncer and the event, the venue itself can dynamically change depending on whoever's coming. It's probably a really bad analogy. The idea is that we have LLMs that can reason, it can see, read, it can see, it can think, and it can hear as well, and it can talk. And I think if you take that idea, it's almost like a human, right? It's almost as if you have someone, a physical person that can do tasks for you, but like forever. And I think the industry is, struggled to really imagine the scope of possibilities that's accessible now. Taking, for example, we have that billions of every kind of data we can think of in a big company like us. And it's not practical or possible in our human lifetimes to go through all the data that we have and to then analyze it and then to actually generate hypotheses and check if it's something we could generate into something that could be useful for people suffering with disease. But now with generative AI, it's a lot easier to have what we call agents go through and trawl through this data to think in similar ways that we would, to employ its reasoning power to make decisions, and then to still keep us as the experts, as humans in the loop, to drive decisions. I think this is just unheard of. I think GSK are definitely on top of employing it from at every level. And I think that the future is just beginning. What we're doing in Jules, essentially, we're just providing scientists ways to access a lot of research from the journals that we've partnered with, together also with their own data as well. And we're using agents to help think and also evaluate the responses that we get. So there's an issue with hallucination. You can get rubbish out a lot of the times. And so it takes a lot of prompt engineering, but also a review, an automated review of that same response to get effective results. But so many things are changing. How we build user interfaces are changing to adapt to this new future. But yeah, there's a lot I could say, but I'll let Charlotte add onto that.
Yeah. Before we do jump to Charlotte, I think it was a great analogy. You know, I back it. Yeah, no, I do. No, because I think it is accessibility. That's the big thing that's changed, right? You know, a few years ago, you had to be able to, at the very least, code, if not, you know, understand how to use some pretty complex data tools to actually utilize AI yourself. Now it's, as you say, right, it's conversational, it's accessible to everyone. Fair enough, you can't build the system, but you can certainly leverage the value from it. So no, I think great analogy. Definitely keep going with it for sure. Charlotte, yeah, as Adrian was kind of throwing over to you, yeah, it'd be great to get your take as well.
Yeah, of course. I definitely echo Adrian's comment on the barrier of entry going down for generative AI. Yeah, I think it's nice that it's becoming a bit more democratized. It's less, as you say, maths and physics experts are the only people who understand or can use it, to becoming a tool that everyone can, which is very exciting. I think it's almost like an evolution and a momentum, right? Like artificial intelligence has been around for a long time, right? But this is just the latest flavor of what it can do. And with the advances in sort of the hardware, the storage, the software that goes behind all these pieces of tech, things are just getting better and better and better, faster and faster and faster. It's so competitive and everyone's trying to do the next big thing. It makes whatever tools and systems we build on top, the generative AI tools like Jules or whatever it may be, even more capable and even faster. I'm excited to see what comes next. Who knows if generative AI is the full answer? I'm sure in a couple of years it will be something else. I remember when it was something else before Gen AI. So yeah, but to Adrian's point, it's really exciting that we've reached a point where the tools that we're building can do such astounding science in a really fast and easy way. Definitely GSK's ambition to use artificial intelligence and generative AI in drug discovery is really exciting to bolster and expedite the research that we do, which is only possible with the machines that can trawl through that data at that speed. So it feels good to be supporting GSK in such a sort of unique way. I think people think pharmaceutical companies and they think, you are a chemist in a lab. So it's kind of cool being like, oh yeah, no, but I help the chemists in the lab by providing them all this data, providing them all these insights. They could read 100 journals or they could log into Jules. It's kind of cool.
Yeah. I'm going to add one more thing as well, Phil.
Absolutely.
I was just thinking like what Charlotte was saying here, like data is king. There was once a time where like data engineering was like the hot, sexy job of whatever 20 something. Then it became machine learning and now everyone's a Gen AI something. But I think what it's showing is a transition between companies trying to access the treasure of data that they have and make practical use of it. I think the big difference that Gen AI has done is before you get a data engineer to curate the data. You have a machine learning engineer that will create custom models on that data. It'll take maybe 6 months to a year or longer to get that. And then you would have some software engineers that would then productionize that into a system. But I think what we have now is you don't have to have a custom model. You can just chuck your data with a very good LLM with some custom prompting, and you get somewhat of a decent output, of what you're looking at. And then what's actually happening now is the reverse. So you might stick your data into a general generative model, and then based upon the outputs of that, how it classifies that data, then you might build a custom model after. and then you have a software engineer after that fact then build some kind of full stack application. So I think what we're seeing is a transition between, or a difference in direction and how we're moving forward with our data. Companies have realized that, that old dusty box can now be opened. And I think that's why you're seeing a lot of excitement that people can finally do things that they haven't imagined or they couldn't do before within a reasonable time or financial investment.
Yeah, for sure. It's an incredibly exciting time to be, involved in the world of tech. We think about the data revolution, the cloud revolution, the mobile revolution. Like it's exciting to be like really on the forefront and living through one, I suppose. Which is awesome. Fantastic. Look, I kind of started off introducing GSK as a company that unites science, tech, and talent. Charlotte, let's come to you on this one. What does that actually look like in your day-to-day work within the Onyx team?
I get the opportunity to work on a lot of projects that are bringing tech solutions to R&D scientists. So it really is the mesh between solving scientific problems, using data, using tools, using platforms. So that's a really interesting intersection that I like discovering more about. I think that the talent piece is just the people that I get to work with within GSK. Onyx has tried to do something really special by trying to imagine the team as a bit of a startup within the company. So we kind of work a little bit different to other tech companies. We've done a really big drive to recruit people with tech backgrounds from tech industries who have different ways of addressing problems that like gold star industrial standards of how to work. Which I think is really interesting and really illuminating, because we need that guidance and we need that professionalism to help inform how we work and the things that we do. As I've said before, everyone that I work with in GSK is astounding as an engineer, astounding as people. Everyone is very open. They'll help you with your problems. They'll work with you. They'll communicate with you. And it creates a really nice atmosphere that I get to work in.
Fantastic. And Adrian, what does that mean to you? What does that mean to your day-to-day? What does that mean to your team?
Charlotte said it better than I could. I think it means having really cool problems to solve. I think it means walking upstairs and speaking to a clinical oncologist or someone that has done a specialism in physics or biology. I think it means walking back downstairs to talk to someone like Charlotte and coming up with a plan to solve it and put it into action. That's how I see it. It's about having the right people around you who are smart, intelligent, and I think excited to bring a world-changing vision to life and really seeing it through and be willing to take responsibility and ownership for it. Yeah.
Adrian does a disservice. It takes a huge amount of intelligence and problem solving and understanding to talk to an R&D scientist, to understand the they're trying to tell you about, and to convert that into a software product using cutting edge technology. Adrian and the engineers that I work with have a phenomenally difficult job, but all approach it with gusto and enthusiasm, and it's really fascinating and impressive to watch. So kudos to you, Adrian.
Teamwork, dreamwork, yeah. But it's fun. It's fun. I think if you're willing to learn and sort of go out of the box, I don't have a traditional sort of like bio background. If you're willing to sit down and try to see how things work, get excited about knowing or learning things that you don't know and pushing the edge and just asking for help where you have those gaps. There's someone in the building, someone in the room, someone on one of our Slack teams, whatever, that you can chat to that's willing to sort of open the door of your understanding and then just taking the next step to apply that to a real world problem.
Fantastic. Yeah, really well said. And again, great segue into my next question. So Charlotte, what I want to kind of focus on now is kind of internal tool enablement, right? Part of bringing those teams together and making sure that everyone is getting the most out of themselves and each other and really collaborating in the best ways is making sure that we leverage all of these incredible tools that we have within the business. So what have you learned about making tech more approachable and useful in a broad sense?
That's a good question. I think it's sort of explaining to R&D scientists how the tech will impact their day-to-day job and make things easier for them. I think in the past, tech has been like a helpful tool, but very difficult to use. So it's more of a burden than something that they're actively going to seek out. I think with all the advancements, especially the generative AI tools, how they're so simple to use. People see it less as a chore or something that they need to learn and more something intuitive. And then absolutely relating what these tools are used for to a problem that they encounter in their day-to-day is the best way of getting them to use the tool. If you say, hey, look, yeah, you do read lots of scientific papers. You spend like an hour with a coffee sat in the lobby reading those papers. Like, is there a way of doing that faster? Or how, rather than comparing different literature sources or finding somewhere that has an alternative view, is there an easier way of doing this? Perhaps you could use a tool like Jules to offer that opinion at a touch of a button. It's so simple to use. All you have to do is ask it a question and it will answer it to you. Yeah, once people feel the benefit of the tech and the tools that you're presenting to them, that's the real selling point, and will really start helping them pick it up and use it, I think.
Yeah, for sure. Excellent. Yeah, all about really leveraging that benefit. Adrian, anything you'd like to add on that, on the tooling side of things, on your experience of kind of, I suppose, getting to grips with new tools, or anything you've recently started using that's really kind of made your life a bit easier?
I would say for things that you build, having good documentation, doing demos, treating anything that you build internally as an external product with the same rigor, the same energy, the same willingness to help is going to get people excited about what you do. Adoption is really the most important thing when it comes to, I guess, evangelizing new things, right? If my friend is using it or my colleague is using it, I might use it too. So being willing to be a face and to, essentially have the proper channels where people have their ear on the ground to listen. In terms of tools that I'm using, I'm still growing in there's a lot of GenAI sort of code gen tools out there. I'm personally trying to make sure that I don't become lazy. That's the truth. There's a lot of really good, powerful tools that can give you good answers or hallucinate. And so I think as a team, we're trying to figure out a healthy balance between growing, accelerating with the skills that we have, but also not outsourcing our thinking. So yeah, it's the future is interesting.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's the balance everyone is trying to strike, and I think definitely still, when decision making is being, well, when AI is being leveraged in decision making, still having the human in the loop. When it's being leveraged to generate content, again, still having that review process and that kind of fact checking process. So crucial. Awesome. Look, really, really good insights there. I think next topic I wanted to kind of delve into with both of you, because you both have some really, really good experience here, is you've both moved into your current role from other fields. Adrian, maybe let's start with you on this. What would you tell your younger self about that kind of journey? Are there any common myths that you'd like to bust, or advice you'd like to share with someone else who might be, in that same situation, thinking about making that same sort of move?
To be controversial, I would say don't chase salary, chase your curiosity. Your career will last a lifetime. I feel like I've been working forever, but it's not been that long. It's really important that you enjoy what you do. Going home after work and having work on your mind isn't a bad thing if you enjoy what you're doing at work. It can be, I think a lot of people who don't like or really feel burdened by work, they find it's not sort of in a line of interest. And I think if you can pursue something that makes you wake up in the morning and be like, this is going to be interesting, this is going to be cool and challenging, this will help me grow as a person as well. So always trying to push into spaces where you don't feel fully comfortable is really important too. Otherwise you stagnate. But also, not being afraid to rabbit hole, is I don't think with today's world, you can make mistakes in choosing something that you have a passion about, because there's always a way to leverage that and to I don't know, make up something, but there's a typical advice, don't do this or don't study this because it has no future. But I think we don't know the future. And I think the evidence is, if you are willing to show up every day and to be disciplined, to continue to work on a skill, you're going to find an opportunity with the modern technology that we have today to sort of bring these two things together and build a world that you want for your own life. So study hard, but don't see study as something limited to school. It's a lifetime of learning. Take time to read books. YouTube videos are great, but I still think written, textbook type materials are still pretty much king for their content and depth. Go to meetups, network furiously, and also network internally at work. Talk to people that you don't know. It might open up doors for you. It has for me in many spaces. And and just have fun with it all, really.
Fantastic. Some really actionable, really tangible points of advice there. And I think the passion one is so important. Like, we spend so much of our lives at work, right? We spend, 40 hours ish every week at work. That's too many hours to not do something that you enjoy or that you're passionate about or that interests you or grabs you. And like, everyone has good days and bad days, but broadly, if you don't have a passion for what you're doing, it makes a huge difference. So yeah, great advice. Charlotte, you've been on a similar sort of journey. You've been in different industries, tried different roles. What would you say?
I think I've always tried to seek out really good managers. As cringy as that sounds, like, having a good manager improves your career tenfold. So I always think, whatever happens with your career, find a good team, find a good manager. Definitely big up Amanda Cushman listening right now. Yeah, find a good person who can challenge you, who can give you feedback, who can champion you, who can give you those opportunities. I think that's really, really important. I also think, and this maybe also is cringy, being okay to take risks and feel like that imposter syndrome and be okay in that, like, uncomfortable growth is an important thing to get used to. I definitely feel imposter syndrome probably every single day coming into work, or if not very, very frequently, and think, oh my gosh, what am I doing? Am I very much out of my depth here? But being able to be okay with that and still put yourself forward and try new things and take risks and learn and develop. As Adrian says, learning is something that you do across your career. It's not something that you do as a junior person. You just take it off the box, then you're like, boom, okay, I'm ready to be in the big leagues now. Like, being able to learn as you go, to feel uncomfortable with that, but also know that you do have the skills and the background, and you are where you're supposed to be, and no matter what happens, you'll be okay, is really important, and something to a muscle to grow.
Yeah. Again, really tangible, really actionable advice. Love the point on imposter syndrome. And look, sometimes the hardest step to take is the first one. And actually, once you get into step 2, step 3, step 4, you realize it's not that scary. And actually, it is getting easier. And you are kind of, coming to terms with it and getting more comfortable with it. And yeah, anyone out there listening in that is looking for that passion project that kind of Adrian's mentioned and is maybe scared to take that first step, as kind of Charlotte's touched on, I would just encourage you to start a conversation. Give it a go. The worst thing that can happen is, you get a no for that first opportunity. There's always that next opportunity around the corner. And if you are thinking about making that move, then, GSK is certainly a company that I would recommend you take a look at. Adrian, wanted to come to you around kind of agentic AI before we go on to our final question. So as someone who's kind of working at that intersection of AI and platform engineering, what potential do you see in AI agents to solve real world problems in healthcare or research?
Yeah, I think we're still very much in a model of someone has an idea, a hypothesis, let's say. There is unstructured data that lives in an old box somewhere, and you need to get a software engineer, a data engineer, maybe someone that does front end as well, to put all these things together. I think that's the world we live in today. That's the world we exist in. I think the future will look very much like there will be an agent that can build your UI. There will be an agent that can massage your data. There'll be an agent that can help reason through the questions that you have. How far down the line that is, it's unclear. But I think it's really important today that people start to get used to using GenAI in their day-to-day workflows. It may not be as advanced as what I've just described, but I think getting familiar with how to talk to these systems. I think there's a level of communication that we have and understand with humans that is still very different, even though we're using English or natural language when it comes to these agentic systems. And I think understanding how to integrate these into your workflow to accelerate what you do is cool.
Awesome. Yeah, great summary. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think it's the next step in automation, right? There were questions of whether we could automate certain things that we now, if you go back, 20 years before DevOps existed, and we were deploying things on floppy disks and on CDs, and you had to post things out to people, and then all of a sudden you're deploying 100 new features a day. It's that kind of next step in our ability to supplement what humans do. Fantastic. Great summary. So look, final question, and this is to both of you. So Charlotte, will come to you first. Looking ahead, what trends or technologies do you think will shape the future of healthcare tech over the next few years?
Oh, that's a good question. My knowledge of tech trends is not as good, so maybe my answer will be a bit of a fudged one. But I think probably the availability of tech. So one of the projects that I'm working on, the migration to cloud, is really exciting because we're offering R&D scientists such scalable resources that they've never had before, right? Just having more compute at a touch of a button, it's so much easier to work with it now than it will have been before. And it will be interesting to see what the R&D scientists do with that capability. And I think as more and more people get into tech, and as the barrier of entry drops through things like cloud, through things like generative AI, as the tools get simpler to use, people are going to find even more inventive ways to use it. Definitely drug discovery is a numbers game. The more you do, the more you run through it, the more likely you'll find that like golden ticket. So I'm excited to see what scientists make of the products we produce and how they use it to help them.
Fantastic. Well said. And Adrian, what's your hot take?
I think we are going to see a rise in personalized medicines. I think with the data that we have, with the systems that we're creating, I think there's definitely a huge platform for us to look at finding medicines, creating drugs that work perfectly just for me and my unique biomechanics. But also I see a world in which healthcare providers as well are able to, I think, be less stressed, to be more confident in the decisions that they make, to know that there's data and good tools out there that can help them do what's best for their patients. And I think partners like pharmaceuticals like GSK, I think, are going to be very much in the business of supporting healthier countries, healthier worlds, healthier cities. And I think we just need to keep pushing forward, keep investing, and keep believing, and really just communicate. There is a lot of exciting ventures that exist in London that are pushing the cutting edge of what research and applied AI looks like. And there's probably a lot out there that I don't know, but I think the future is full of people that are willing to pursue it.
Yeah. Fantastic. Excellent. Great summary. And a real positive way to end the pod as well, with a real positive view of the future and all the positive impact that AI is going to have on healthcare and on people's lives out there, which is ultimately, taking us full circle back to the start of the podcast and kind of why, you both joined GSK and the passion you both have for what GSK does. Thank you so much for joining us today. So many great points, great bits of advice for anyone out there listening in. Before we do wrap up, is there anything else either of you wanted to share that we haven't had the chance to cover? If so, the floor is yours. If not, no problem at all.
Hit me up on LinkedIn. My name is Adrian Samuel. I'm always down to chat. I like to encourage people to pursue and explore things. I can't tell you about what we do internally, but, I encourage you to read some books and to point you in the right direction, I think, if you're interested in pursuing some of the things that we talked about on the pod.
Yeah, absolutely. Me too. And I suppose equally, Phil, just thank you for having us.
Phil, it's been great. Thank you for hosting, being a guest.
No problem. No, when I have, great guests like yourselves, full of energy, full of great points, makes my job a dream. So thank you so much. And yeah, anyone out there maybe that has that element of imposter syndrome, that's thinking about taking that first step, Charlotte and Adrian have both extended the offer. Why not drop them a message? And yeah, maybe that a quick chat with them will give you the confidence to kind of make that move. So no, all it leaves me to do is just say thank you so much, Charlotte, for joining us.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for having me.
And Adrian, thank you so much for jumping on with us as well.
Thank you, Phil. It's been fun.
Excellent. And yeah, thank you to everyone out there listening in. This has been another episode of the DevLab podcast. Again, please check out the podcast description. We'll include relevant links, but also all the information needed on how to get in touch with GSK. Fantastic company solving real world problems, having an impact on people's lives across the globe, and a great place to either start your career or continue your career within a business with a great collaborative culture. So yeah, couldn't recommend them highly enough. So thanks everyone, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, Phil. Thank you,
Awesome.
everyone.
Thanks.
Cheers.